Hello, good day everyone. Today we're going to discuss about Philippine folk literature, and in this video we're going to answer 4 important questions relating to our topic Philippine folk literature. So while watching and learning, I hope you're going to have fun while listening to the discussion. Welcome to Philippine folk literature. The word below is not read as literature, but literature. Repeat after me. Literature. Again, literature. So we read the word as literature. Okay, good. Again, let's read all together. Philippine folk literature. Okay, as I have said earlier, we're going to discuss or answer 4 important questions relating to Philippine folk literature. And these are the following questions. 1. What is literature? 2. Why do we need to study Philippine literature? 3. What are the general types of literature? And 4. What is Philippine folk literature? So one by one, we're going to answer that, or we're going to answer this, beginning with the first question. What is literature? What is literature? The word literature is derived from the Latin term litera, which means letter. It has been defined differently by various writers. For some, they interpret literature as any printed matter written within a book, a magazine, or a pamphlet. Others define literature as a faithful reproduction of man's manifold experiences blended into one harmonious expression. Because literature deals with ideas, thoughts, and emotions of man, literature can be said to be the story of man. So meaning to say, anything that man experiences, anything that man thinks, man feels, or man does, that is considered literature because it includes or it involves man's loves, griefs, thoughts, dreams, and aspirations. So in order to know the history of a nation's spirit, one must read its literature. According to Brother Azurin, he said that literature expresses the feelings of people to society, to the government, to his surroundings, to his fellow men, and to his divine creator. The expression of one's feeling, according to him, may be through love, sorrow, happiness, hatred, anger, pity, contempt, or revenge. Another from Mr. Webster. It defined literature as anything that is printed as long as it is related to the ideas and feelings of people, whether it is true or just a product of one's imagination. So, we have answered the first question, what is literature? Next question. Why do we need to study Philippine literature? There are many reasons for studying Philippine literature, and we can enumerate some of them on this discussion. We study literature so that we can better appreciate our literary heritage. So when we say heritage, that means something that is handed down to us from the past. Ibig sabihin, yung ipinamana. Okay? Ipinamana sa atin ng ating mga ninuno. That is the heritage. We cannot appreciate something that we do not understand. Through a study of our literature, we can trace heritage ideas handed down to us from our forefathers or from our ancestors. Then we can understand ourselves better and take pride in being a Filipino. Like other races in the world, we need to understand that we have a great and noble tradition which can serve as the means to assimilate, or when we say assimilate, that is when the time that we absorb other cultures. Like some of you are fond of assimilating Korean culture, South Korean culture, because some of us are eating at the Korean restaurants, now using chopsticks, or we are fond of watching K-drama, we are fond of uh, following the different K-drama idols, no, or mga bands, or some other things like we follow or we do other culture. Like parang it's like we already forgot our own culture, no? That is absorbing other culture. So we have to understand that we have a great and noble traditions. Okay? That before absorbing others, we have to understand first that we have also such great and noble traditions. Okay? And above all, as Filipinos who truly love and take pride in our own culture, we have to manifest our deep concern for our own literature. And this we can do by studying the literature of our own country. Okay, that is why we cannot go away with learning our own literature. No, if you notice in your elementary grades, no, in your elementary years, you were talking about mga pabula. We're talking about you were singing Awiting Bayan. You were having fun, no, exchanging bugtong-bugtong or riddles, no, and some other stuff that are related to our own literature or the Philippine literature. So, next question comes with, what are the general types of literature? We have to understand that literature is a wide variety of writings, no? Or not only writings, but also oral, mean to say, those are not just the things that we write, no? Or that we have seen written. But, of course, there are still oral literature, no? Pag hinambal gani nga oral, ibig sabihin, handed down to us through generation to generation, not being recorded. Nang paras balasan ng ginapasa-pasa sa aton mga istorya. Okay? That is an example of oral literature. So let's go back to the question. What are the general types of literature? As I have said earlier, it's a wide variety of things or of literature. There are different types, no? It's a large or a wide variety. Ibig sabihin, damo kita sang mapilian. Okay? We have a lot of things to choose from this kind of literature. That is why we're going to answer the question, what are the general types of literature? So literature can be divided into two types. We have the prose and poetry. What are these things? Let's begin with the prose. A prose consists of those written within the common flow of conversation in sentences and paragraphs. If you will notice, no, in the coming sessions, or if you have noticed in your previous lessons, in your elementary lessons, no, in English, there were reading texts that you have read, no, and if you notice, some of them were written in sentences and paragraphs form. So those are examples of prose. How about poetry? Poetry refers to those expressions in verse, no, with measure and rhyme, line and stanza, and there's a more melodious tone. Okay, we will discuss this more in depth one by one. Okay, let's begin with the prose. So there are many types of prose. These include novels or biographies, short stories, contemporary dramas, legends, fables, essay, anecdotes, news, and speeches. So what are novels, or what is a novel? This is a long narrative divided into chapters. The events are taken from true-to-life stories and spans a long period of time. And there are many characters involved. Do you understand the word narrative? Now, the word narrative means that, or it is similar to the word story. Okay? A narrative is a story. So, mean to say, the novel is a long story divided into chapters. If you will see a writing such as this, no, there are chapters divided into chapters, mga long stories. That is an example of a novel. Next, short story. A short story is a narrative involving one or more characters, one plot, and one single impression. So this is shorter than the novel because it only has one plot and one single impression. Although it could be led or done by one or more characters. But I'm telling you, short story is not really short. Okay? It's actually a long story. Okay? But it is shorter than, as I have said, shorter than the novel. Next one. Plays. What are plays? Play is presented on a stage and is divided into acts, and each act has many scenes. I don't know if you have already watched some of the plays, no? One example, if you have watched the Shrek, the musical, that is an example of a play, wherein the character is led by a person, no? A human being, and then there are different acts and scenes. Okay, again, it is presented on a stage and is divided into acts, and each act has many scenes. Next one, legends. Legends are fictitious narratives. When we say fictitious, hindi makatotohanan. Okay? Gawa-gawa. Not true to life. Okay? This talks about the origin or ang pinagmulan. We are all familiar with the legend because when you were in elementary, no, there were a lot of legends, especially mga pinagmulan ng lugar, paano nagsimula ang isang prutas like ang pinya. That is an example of a legend. Okay? Next one. Fables. What are fables? These are also fictitious. Ibig sabihin, not true to life. Hindi totoo. And they deal with animals and inanimate things, no, who speak and act like people, and their purpose is to enlighten the minds of children to events that can mold their ways and attitudes. Ibig sabihin, fables, no, are not also true to life. The main characters are done by the animals. No? Animals speak and they could do what a person does. Pwede himuon ng isang tao. And what is the most important part there for fables, no, is that it gives us a moral lesson. Okay? May mga natututunan tayo na mga morals. Okay? Mga dapat nating gawin sa buhay. Another is the anecdotes. Although ang anecdotes, it seems like they are similar with the fables because the stories can be about animals. But Anecdotes are merely products of the writer's imagination, and the main aim is to bring out lessons to the reader. Although ang fable is ang character ay animals, ang anecdotes, ang iyang character, it could be animals or children. Okay? Animals or children. That's the difference. Next one. Essay. This expresses the viewpoint or opinion of the writer about a particular problem or event. So it's like something that we are usually doing, no? When we answer one question. So that's how we express our opinion, how we express our views. Kumbaga, how do we answer the question, no? About a particular event is an example of an essay. But usually an essay is composed of a minimum 5 paragraphs. No? That's the minimum number of paragraphs of the essay. 5. Okay. Next, biography. What is biography? Maybe this is also familiar to you because you cannot graduate from elementary without writing your autobiographies, tama? Or without writing biography. Biography deals with the life of a person, which may be about himself, no? Or we call that his biography, autobiography, or that of others, or biography. For example, it is only called autobiography when you write your own life story, no? Yourself, ikaw mismo ang nagsulat. But when you write the life story of others, no, that is called biography. Okay, nakuha ang difference between autobiography and biography. Okay, good. Next. The next one is news. Okay, balita. This is a report of everyday events in society, government, science and industry, and accidents happening nationally or not. These are the things that we see every day, especially sa Facebook, no? If you follow Brigada or Radyo Bida or Max FM, no? They give us news every day. Okay? Next one. It's oration. What is oration? This is a formal treatment of a subject and intended to be spoken in public. So it appeals to the intellect, to the will, or to the emotions of the audience. In oration, it seems like the orator is the speaker. It's like naghatag ka sa imong speech. Similar siya sa ninaga-beauty contest gani. No? When they answer, that is somehow related to oration. Because it appeals to the intellect, to the will, or to the emotions of the audience. And second type of literature is the poetry. There are 3 types of poetry, namely narrative, lyric, and dramatic. What is a narrative poetry? This form describes important events in life, either real or imaginary. Okay? As I have said, balik tayo dun sa what is narrative? It's a story. So when we say narrative poetry, it describes important events in life, no? Your specific event in somebody's life. Pwede siya nga tuod-tuod, pwede siya nga imagination lang. And there are different varieties of narrative poetry. We have epic, mythical tale, and ballads. What is an epic or epiko sa Filipino? This is an extended narrative about heroic exploits, often under supernatural control. It may deal with heroes and gods. One of the common example of this epic is the Biyag ni Lamang, or the life of Lamang. If you're familiar with the story, Lamang is a newborn baby, and then to kadasig lang sa iyang pagawas niya, nakahistorya na siya, ano na siya, nakaaway na siya, no? It's very imaginative because in real life it does not happen. When a newborn or a newborn baby, when there's a newborn baby, he does not automatically speak, no? He does not speak, he does not do anything except crying, no? Magdede, magtulog, ulit-ulit hanggang sa lumaki ang newborn baby. But in the life of Lamang, well, because this is an epic, no, it's imaginative, then a writer can do whatever he wants, no. It is under supernatural control, meaning to say, may ara sa mga supernatural forces involved in the story, like mga gods and goddesses, no. In the Philippine literature, we have also mga gods and goddesses, no. Next, there are also two kinds of epic poetry, and these are popular or ancient and literary or modern. So the popular or ancient epic is often without a definite author, meaning to say, because it has been ancient, we cannot identify already who is the author. But in the modern literature, may aragi siya sang author, may nagsulat gid. Next one, the metrical tale. What is a metrical tale? This is a narrative which is written in verse and can be classified either as a ballad or a metrical romance. Okay? Next one, ballads. Of all the narrative poems, okay, this is considered the shortest and simplest. It has a structure and it has a simple structure and tells of a single incident. There are also variations of these ballads. It could be love ballads, war ballads, sea ballads, humorous, moral, historical, or mythical ballads, no? And in the early times, this referred to a song accompanying a dance. Okay? Sige, next. Another type of poetry is lyric poetry. This refers to that kind of poetry meant to be sung, no? To the accompaniment of a lyre. But now, this applies to any type of poetry that expresses emotions and feelings of the poet. So they are usually short, simple, and easy to understand. And there are different types of lyric poetry. What are these? One is folk songs. Next, sonnets, elegy, ode, psalms, awit, and corridos. So one by one, we will define these types of lyric poetry. Starting with folk songs, or we call this the awiting bayan. What is this? These are short poems, no? We read the word poems, not poems, okay? It's a two-syllable word. So, repeat after me. Poem. Poem. Okay, there are short poems intended to be sung. So, the common theme is love, despair, grief, doubt, joy, hope, and sorrows, no? Or sorrow. Next, sonnets. What are these sonnets? This is a lyric poem of 14 lines, okay? 14 lines dealing with an emotion, a feeling, or an idea. There are two types of sonnets. One is Italian and the other is Shakespearean. Next one, elegy. This is a lyric poem which expresses feelings of grief and melancholy and whose theme is death. Next, ode. An ode is a poem of a noble feeling expressed with dignity, with no definite number of syllables or definite number of lines in stanzas. Unlike with the sonnets, okay, which has an exact 14 lines, no? This ode does not require definite number of lines in a stanza. Okay? Pwedeng 5, pwede 6, such things. Okay? Next, Psalms or dalit sa Tagalog. This is a song praising God and containing a philosophy of life. For some resources, they also included the Psalms, no, as a song praising God, and I think that one is related to a prayer uttered to Virgin Mary, something like that. That is Psalms. Next, wait. It is read as Psalms. That is silent L. Okay? Everybody say Psalms. Pag wala siya sa punta, so it is read as Sam. Sam. Okay, may S man siya, it's Psalms. Okay? Again, Psalms. Good. Next. Awit or song. These have measures of 12 syllables, or we call that the dodecasyllabic, and slowly sung to the accompaniment of a guitar or bandurria. Okay. Next, last, for the type of lyric poetry, we call it corridos or corridos. These have measures of 8 syllables, or we call that octosyllabic, and recited to a martial beat. Ibig sabihin, medyo marching beat. Okay? It has 8 syllables. Unlike with the awit, no? It has 12 syllables per line and slowly accompanied by slowly sung, and accompaniment, and to the accompaniment of a guitar or bandurria. Next type of poetry, the dramatic poetry. So dramatic poetry includes the following form: 1. Comedy, 2. Melodrama, 3. Tragedy, 4. Farce, and social poems. What is a comedy? We are all familiar with the term comedy, but how is it related to literature? As it is a kind of a dramatic poetry. A comedy, or the word comedy, comes from the Greek term komos, meaning to say festivity or revelry. Ibig sabihin, it's related to the word masaya. Kailangan masaya, festive. So, ibig sabihin, komos is kasiyahan. This form usually is light and written with the purpose of amusing, and usually has a happy ending. Any story that has a happy ending is or falls into comedy. Okay? Falls into comedy. Next is melodrama. What is a melodrama? This is usually used in musical plays with the opera, and it is related to tragedy such as the farce is to comedy. So, ibig sabihin, melodrama, it's related to we understand melodrama as ng sad ending, no? Namamatay ang bida, mapatay, or madisgrasya, no? So that is why it is related to tragedy. Hindi siya masaya. That is the opposite of comedy, melodrama. Next is tragedy. This involves the hero struggling mightily against dynamic forces. So he meets death or ruin without success and satisfaction obtained by the protagonist in a comedy. So tragedy, it's like ang kontrabida kumbaga in the end, ang ending, ang kontrabida ang nadaog, hindi ang bida. Kaya kung ang bida, ang padayang yapon niya nalipay, ibig sabihin that kind of poetry is a comedy. But if the kontrabida wins, no, the type that falls is tragedy. Okay? Next, farce. A farce is a kind of dramatic poetry, no? Or an exaggerated comedy. It seeks to arouse laughter or mirth by laughable line. Okay? Situations are too ridiculous to be true, though hindi mo na mapatihan nga daw nga matuod. The characters seem to be caricatures and the motives undignified and absurd. Okay? Ibig sabihin daw, wala na siya sa, kumbaga, tama niya nga pag-iisip, no? Sobra na siya to the highest level, maximum level siya sa comedy. That is farce. Okay? Next is social next is social poems. This form is either purely comic or tragic, komedya or tragedya, and it pictures the life of today, no? So it may aim to bring about changes in the social conditions. So anything, story or poems about society, about what is happening today is a social poems. We are down to the last question, no? It leads us to the last question. What is Philippine folk literature? No, I forgot. Wala sang question mark nila. So that is a question. What is Philippine folk literature? So, long before the Spaniards, no? Bago pa nag-abot ang Spaniards diri sa Philippines and other foreigners, no? Our forefathers had already their own literature. Okay? We had already our own literature stamped in the history of our race. Ibig sabihin, before pa kita ginsakop sa mga Espanyol, before pa kita ginsakop sa mga Japanese and Americans and other conquerors, we already have our own literature. Ibig sabihin, may naga-exist na sa to nga mga istorya, nga mga may mga stories na of man, because long before they came, may mga tao naman, may mga Pinoy na. And our ancient literature, okay, shows our customs and traditions in everyday life, as traced in our folk stories, old plays, and short stories. So, ibig sabihin, these literatures, no, our ancient literatures, it shows our customs, ang ginaobra natin sa kinabuhi, and our traditions, what do we believe in, and what do we usually do. Because our customs and traditions become our own life. Okay? Kaya kung anong ginaobra natin, that becomes our habit. Okay? And what becomes our habit defines who we are. Okay? So, kung nagapati ka nga may ara sang, or I don't know if you have noticed this, when somebody is dead and we celebrate their death anniversary, if you notice your parents, no? Kasi may nagabutang-butang pa sila sa mga pagkaon sa plato, and then gina-separate nila para ni siya sa napatay nga tungas ng espiritu, and then they place kung wala man sang kandila, it's like basta gina-separatan gid, no? We separate food for them. So those traditions are existing already long before. Ibig sabihin, dugay na siya ginaobra, kinahimo na sang iban. But for me, if you're going to ask me if I do agree with this kind of thing, though wala man, di ko gusto magsugot sina. Because that kind of tradition, no, though, what for? Para sa ano? But because our forefathers have done that, so that means to say that that kind of thing, no, ang ginhimo nila nga pareha sina, naga-exist gapon until today. That because that becomes the life of the people. Okay? Our ancestors had their own alphabet, no? May mga alfabeto na, which was different from that brought by the Spaniards. The first alphabet used by our ancestors was similar to that of the Malayo-Polynesian alphabet. Or we have that baybayin already, or kung hindi masang baybayin, basta do similar sinang baybayin. Have you heard about baybayin? If you notice, no, if you can go back to this video, the picture on the first slide, no, sa title sa Philippine folk literature, the picture on the left side, no, that is an example of a baybayin. Okay? Next, whatever records our ancestors left, no, were either burnt by Spanish friars in the beliefs that they were works of the devil, or were written on material that easily perished, like the barks of trees, no? Ibig sabihin, before pa nagkaroon sa mga papel na nasulat sa libro, ang mga istorya, our ancestors have been recording the stories of man. Ginasulat nila ini siya sa mga barks ng tree, ibig sabihin sa mga mga panit sang kahoy, sa mga dried leaves, ginasulat nila na siya using knife, kutsilyo, and ganitong isa ng duga sang kahoy, no? And some of them were written in mga bamboo cylinders, no, dira sa mga kawayan. This means to say that the records, no, the records that our forefathers have, somehow, kung nabalaan nila kung paano to siya, kung nabalaan nila nga madunot gali ang kawayan, masunog gali ang dahon, pwede gali masunog man ang kahoy, no? Tanigin sulat na nila sa sa mga walls, no, para sa mga Egyptians. Pero because the Spaniards came already, so abi nila, because they were not able to understand our ancestors, ginsunog nila tong mga materials na to. Okay? So, our records that remained showed folk songs, no, that proved the existence of native culture truly our own. Some of these were passed on by word of mouth till they reached the hands of some publishers or printers, no, who took interest in printing the manuscripts of the ancient Filipinos. That is why, as I was saying, may arat na kita, no? Hindi lang gid naton ma-retrieve tanan-tanan because they were already burnt. Okay? Wala na. Kung may ara pa man siguro may madumduman, pero kumbaga not all. Kaya syempre malipatan man asang tawo. And it might have some changes, no, from the original composition because it has been passed through mouth lang. Ibig sabihin, istorya lang ba? Tugin istorya sa imo ni lolo, tapos sa ikaw na naging lolo ka naman, ginistorya mo man sa mga apo mo, no? And maybe you have added something and things like that. And lastly, the Spaniards who came to the Philippines tried to prove that, matutuod gid that, they prove that our ancestors were really fond of poetry, songs, stories, riddles, and proverbs, which we still enjoy today and which serve to show generations the true culture of our people. That is why we should not be ashamed, no? Hindi kita dapat mahuya of being a Filipino. Although, we might imagine nga imagine nyo kadamo sa mga languages, damo sa mga dialects all over the Philippines. And knowing that Philippines is an archipelago, watak-watak nga area, I'm very sure nga damo gigitaya sa mga literatures. It's just that among ganin hamba ko kaina, we or our ancestors did not know how to keep those records, no? Nga for baga pang long lasting, no? And these Spaniards, no, at least, no, they were proven to the Spaniards that our ancestors were really fond, no, mga bright kid sila nga klase ka tawo. Why? Because they were fond of poetry. Kaya kung hindi ka bright, hindi ka man makaisip dahil sang tula. Okay? Hindi ka man makakompose ng song, hindi ka man makaubra ng stories, riddles, and proverbs. These things, no, show us that Filipinos really are intellectual people. No? They are intelligent, bright kids sila. Amo na nga kita, dapat we also have to show today that we are intelligent. How? In today's generation, especially sa mga young people, we become, we are poor in decision makings. No? Nagadali-dali lang kita magdesisyon kung ano lang ito maisipan natin. Wala kita nag-iisip nga, ay, basi mahulog ni siya sa mali. Ay, tama ba ni siya or mali? Ang ginaobra ko. So, we have to look back and look through our ancestors kung paano nila gin-survive. How did they show intelligence? How did they show customs and traditions in or on their literatures? Okay? So, I hope that today you not just learned something, but you have learned a lot. No? I made this video so that kung hindi nyo man maintindihan, you can go back, no, to the explanation, or you can go back to the discussion whenever you want. I hope that you will take note of these important things, because this is or this should be the jumpstart of learning Philippine literature. Okay, or learning your grade 7 English lessons. These are very important. If you have questions, no, kung may mga wala ko mo sa naintindihan, you can search through the net. You look through Philippine literature, the different types, mga examples, kung gusto nyo sa mga examples. You can look or you can search in the internet, no, sa mga examples kung gusto nyo gid sa Philippine literature. But for now, amo lang ni siya ang mahimo ko. These are just the things that I will be sharing. If you have questions, if you have queries, no, just send your inquiry, mga pamangkot nyo sa akon directly. Mag-PM ka mo sa akon. And I hope this has given you a lot, no? It will really help for your coming activities, okay? For your coming mga next activities. I hope you are all doing great with your modules. You're accomplishing your modules. And again, kung may mga pamangkot ka mo about the lesson, please contact me, okay? So for now, these are all the things that are very important. I hope you have learned a lot from this video. So that's all for today, and God bless everyone.